Hi everybody, Christina here, Senior Educator for Dermalogica and the International Dermal Institute, and today we are going to talk skin and sip tea. Welcome to video number 1 in my Treating Skin of Color series, which is Myth and Fact about Skin of Color. Now, in general, in the aesthetics industry, we're not taught a lot about treating skin of color or even how to look at skin of color. And because of that, there's a lot of myths floating out there in the internet land, and they're really kind of skewing the way that we treat our clients, so we're not getting the best results for their skin. So what we're gonna do today is myth bust. Now, before we can myth bust, before we get too excited, we need to take a couple steps back and understand what skin color even is before we can utilize that information in our treatments. So, pop quiz, answer honestly. What gives skin its color? Okay, time up. If you said melanin, you are 25% correct. Now, here's what I mean by that. Melanin is obviously the pigment that we think of when we think of what gives our skin its color, but there are actually 4 different factors in our body that go into how our color is perceived on our skin. And those 4 things are called chromophores. So chromophores are various cells and structures in our skin that actually reflect light, and the combination of this light reflection together changes how we perceive the color that we see on our skin. Like we said with melanin, the reason I said you're 25% correct is because melanin is just one of 4 chromophores that we have in the skin. It is going to be the focus that we talk about today, but let's talk about what the other 3 are as well. First type of chromophore reflects red colors in our skin, and this actually comes from oxygenated blood in our capillaries. So obviously this is going to be the same for all of us because we all have red blood, but some people maybe have capillaries that are a little more dilated on the surface of the skin. Some people have capillaries that are a little more restricted, and remember, the capillaries are underneath your epidermis where your melanin lives, so that's going to affect how we perceive that red color in your skin. Chromophore number 2 is deoxygenated blood. So this is what gives us that blue or green kind of hint that we see in our veins. So that's going to reflect differently for clients of different skin tones as well. The third types of chromophores reflect yellow light, and these are going to be carotenoids and collagen. Yes, collagen is light reflective. We will talk about that. Carotenoids in the skin that reflect that yellow color are generally found in the stratum corneum, but also in the deeper layer of the skin in the subcutaneous layer. When we get into collagen, collagen of course lives in your dermis, and that is actually a reflective property where light passes all the way through your skin, all the way through your epidermis, and bounces back off of that collagen in your dermis. That's 3 chromophores. The melanin that we've talked about is the 4th. So melanin alone, even if it's 2 different types of melanin, which we'll talk about, the lighter and the darker, it's not just the light or the dark melanin that give us our skin color. And the skin color that we have is going to be the lighter melanin, the darker melanin, the yellow carotenoids and collagen, the blue deoxygenated blood, the red oxygenated blood, and every single one of us has all of those aspects to varying degrees. Now, of course, today, melanin is going to be the focus because that's what we're affecting the most in the treatment room when it comes to treating skin of color and especially hyperpigmentation, which is video number 3 in the series. So generally when we think of lighter skin clients, we think less melanin, and when we think darker skin clients, we think more melanin, but that's not entirely true because there are 2 different types of melanin that our body can create. Most of us have some combination of both, but you're going to see them in different degrees. Now, the first type of melanin, which is the most common one, is called eumelanin. Eumelanin is responsible for brown and black shades in the skin. So various shades of browns and blacks, and it's going to vary from person to person. It also can vary of how much eumelanin you have in your skin. The other type of melanin is pheomelanin. So this is the lighter in color. So this is going to be shades of reds and yellows that give the skin a lighter tone. So when someone has fair skin, it doesn't necessarily mean they have less melanin, it means they have different melanin. It's lighter, it's smaller. Pheomelanin is like grains of sand. It's small little tiny flecks of those reds and those yellows. Eumelanin is actually bigger. Eumelanin is more like jelly beans. So we've got melanin that is darker in color and larger inside that melanosome package. Now, quick physiology 101, if you don't remember melanogenesis, which is the process of the creation of pigment in the skin, a melanosome is a little package that your melanin lives in. So your melanosome in someone who has darker skin is going to be more packed with bigger, darker melanin. Because it's more packed and because it is eumelanin, you actually get more sun protection. Someone with lighter skin, the pheomelanin, actually does not offer UV protection, which is why people who have fairer skin are more likely to get sunburned. Now, another thing that differs with melanosomes is that you can have melanosomes that are densely packed or that are loosely packed. So someone who has more densely packed eumelanin within their melanosomes could have skin that is darker than someone who has the exact same eumelanin, but it's more spread apart in the melanosome. So that's another thing that can contribute to the difference in skin color. Same thing applies when we go over to pheomelanin. They still have the same pheomelanin, but it might be more densely packed for someone who's fair-skinned but a little darker, and more loosely packed for someone who's fair-skinned but a little lighter. So the things that are contributing to the skin color that we're seeing so far are the type of melanin, the size of melanin, the density of melanin within the melanosomes, and I'm going to add something else on there. The melanosomes tend to be oblong shaped in darker skin packed with eumelanin, where they tend to be more round and circular for clients with pheomelanin. Now, because of this, because of all of this together, your clients with more eumelanin, so your higher Fitzpatrick clients, are actually more likely to have hyperpigmentation as a side effect because the melanin and the melanosomes and the melanogenesis process can be more active. It's turned on more quickly. There's more melanin packed in that could potentially go awry. So when you're treating your high Fitzpatrick clients with darker skin, you have to be aware of the fact that hyperpigmentation could be a side effect of an advanced treatment. So you have to use caution in your treatment room. Is it true that darker skin is thicker than lighter skin? This one is actually true in a couple of different ways. One is epidermal, one is dermal. When we talk about the thickness of the skin, and specifically the thickness of the stratum corneum, the measurement that you're generally seeing is based on research on white clients. So when we say that the stratum corneum is up to 16 layers thick, that's specifically in your white, more fair-skinned clients. If you look at darker skinned black clients, the stratum corneum can actually get up to 22 or even 25 layers thick. Also, your black clients are going to be more prone to something called retention hyperkeratosis. Retention hyperkeratosis is when your body is creating a lot of skin cells, but instead of sloughing off and shedding off the way that they're supposed to, they retain. So the hyperkeratosis is the overcreation of skin cells, and the retention is keeping them on the skin so they don't slough off. So already you have a demographic of clients who has thicker skin than your lighter skin clients. And on top of that thicker stratum corneum, you're also seeing retention of additional skin cells that are not sloughing off the way they should in a natural desquamation process. Because of that, when you face map your clients and you're looking at skin thickness, it's very likely that you'll see thicker skin that can appear a little bit textured due to thicker stratum corneum and retention hyperkeratosis. Generally, you'll see that along with dehydration. And this is a really good photo showing you a close-up of exactly what that looks like. This particular client is very dehydrated. You can tell that from the glassy appearance to the skin. It almost looks like the skin is pulled tight. But that glassiness is sitting on top of the texture on the skin. And the texture is the buildup of the stratum corneum from a thicker skin and that retention hyperkeratosis. Another way that skin may be thicker in skin of color is the dermis. Now, this research is specifically comparing black clients to white clients, so this might not be true in clients of other ethnicities, but in black skin, you're more likely to see a denser dermis, which means more tightly packed collagen, so it doesn't break down as easily. So we've got thickness in the density of the dermis, and we've got thickness in the layers of the stratum corneum. And with those two pieces together, that is how darker skin could be thicker than lighter skin. Dark skin can't get red. This is a huge myth, especially if you're someone who's not used to looking at skin of color. You might have a hard time identifying when your darker skin clients are experiencing inflammation. However, inflammation is a key part in the pigmentation process, and your clients with higher Fitzpatrick or darker skin are actually more likely to have an inflammatory response that leads to hyperpigmentation on the skin. So you have to be aware of what you're seeing in order to make sure you're giving a safe treatment. I have a couple examples here of what it could look like to see redness or inflammation on darker skin. It's important that you're able to recognize this on the skin because this is going to help you give better treatments to your clients. Remember, inflammation leads to pigmentation. If you have a client of color who's concerned with hyperpigmentation and you're giving them treatments that are increasing their inflammatory response, you could be worsening their skin over time. So make sure you're comfortable looking at these photos and looking at other photos, looking at your clients and identifying where you can see redness and inflammation through those brown tones of the skin. Is it true that darker skin is oilier than lighter skin? This one's kind of going to vary depending on the client in front of you, but in general, Black clients are more likely to have an increase in sebaceous glands higher than what is average for your white clients. So when you have an increase of sebaceous glands, you have an increase of oil production and a little bit more protection on your skin in the form of the hydrolipid film, aka the acid mantle, which is what we used to call it back in the day. And it also means that the skin may present as more oily. This isn't going to be true for all of your clients, so you want to make sure that you're always doing an in-depth skin analysis on that particular client you have in front of you. Is it true that clients with darker skin don't need sunscreen because melanin is just as protective as sunscreen? This one is false, and I am so ready for this myth to die. When you have someone who has more eumelanin in their skin, remember we already said that eumelanin has UV protective properties and pheomelanin does not. But when you have more eumelanin, it doesn't mean that it's as good as putting on an SPF 50. You can still have degradation that's happening in your skin. You might have a little bit more protection, but it doesn't mean that that UV can't get through. For example, let's think of what UV can do when it targets your skin, especially in the summertime when the UVB rays are strong. When UVB rays are strong, it hits the surface of your skin and your skin recognizes that UV rays could potentially cause cancer in your cells, and the way that it tries to protect your body from cancer is to kick out more melanin because melanin, eumelanin, has UV protective properties. So every time you get a tan, regardless of what your skin color is, that tan is your body trying real hard to not get cancer. That's what a tan is. Now, if you're someone who naturally has more eumelanin, so you naturally have more UV protection, your body doesn't always have to work that much harder to create the protection, but it's not going to get you to an SPF 50. Those UVB rays can still trigger the melanocytes. They can worsen hyperpigmentation. Those UVA rays, which get deeper in the skin, can still target your collagen. We know that the dermis is a little more dense, especially in Black clients, but that doesn't mean that that collagen can't be broken down through UV. We also have to make sure that we are protecting all of our clients, every single client, from potential skin cancers. Just because melanoma specifically is less common in clients with darker skin of any ethnic background, it does not mean it is impossible. And having sunscreen on every day ensures that we are reducing any potential skin cancer risk that can be caused by ultraviolet radiation. So you always want to make sure that you have a sunscreen that blends well on your client's skin, whether it's a chemical sunscreen or a micronized zinc physical sunscreen, just to make sure that they are comfortable wearing their sunscreen, but they still have that UV protection, protecting them from increased signs of aging, accelerated hyperpigmentation, and skin cancers. Is it true that some products just don't work on our skin? This is a myth that circulated throughout the Black community for a long time, and I personally think that it's because not a lot of people are taught how to treat our skin, so we have to figure it out on our own. And that's kind of led to this myth that those products don't work for my skin, so I have to use these. When it comes down to it, our skin is more similar than it is different, regardless of your skin color. We know, we've talked about a lot of things so far that we have to consider with clients of color to work into our treatments, but when it gets down to the bare bones of things, skin mostly works the same. We exfoliate the same way, we hydrate the same way, we create collagen the same way, we have natural moisturization factors the same way. We're going through the same cellular processes regardless of if you are a Fitzpatrick 1 with oily skin and dehydration or a Fitzpatrick 6 with oily skin and dehydration. Now, we already know, because we've talked about this, there are some considerations that you need to take with darker skin clients that you may not need to take with fair skin clients. But it doesn't mean that we have to go in two different directions for products. Your products will work for all Fitzpatricks, all clients of all ethnic backgrounds, as long as you're doing a really thorough face mapping skin analysis, you really understand that client's skin in front of you, and you're taking additional considerations that we've talked about today. Is it true that black don't crack? Yes. Yes, it is. But let's talk about why. Let's dig into the science. A couple of things we've talked about already. So call back to some things we talked about with eumelanin. Eumelanin has a more protective quality when it comes to UV than pheomelanin does. So automatically, if you have more eumelanin, you have more UV protection. Now, we also know that it's this much more UV protection, but over the span of 50, 60, 70 years, that UV protection is going to be significantly more than someone who has primarily pheomelanin. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect we've already talked about as well, a denser dermis. Denser, more tightly packed collagen will degrade more slowly over time, which means you won't see wrinkling happening over the skin. And remember, black clients have a denser dermis than white clients. Another thing we haven't talked about as far as the dermis is the number of fibroblast cells. So fibroblast cells are the ones that are responsible for creating collagen, creating elastin, and they're part of the wound healing process. When we're trying to stimulate collagen production and treat lines and wrinkles, we're stimulating fibroblast activity. Black clients have more fibroblasts than white clients. So we've got more fibroblasts, which means more fibroblast activity, which means more collagen production, which leads to an even denser dermis, which will not break down as easily over time. So that's going to equal less wrinkles. And one of the last aspects is lifestyle choices. Your clients who have fairer skin are going to be more likely to go out and tan and lay on the beach and lay in a tanning bed or stand at a tanning booth, where your darker skin clients really aren't going to be doing that often, if at all. I personally didn't even know that intentional tanning was a thing until I got to high school and met white friends who were tanning. I had never even heard of it before that. It's just not something that you're going to find in a lot of black culture. So if you have someone who is getting significantly less UV exposure over a lifetime, combine that with the other physiological factors that we've talked about so far, and those clients are going to age more slowly. So scientifically speaking, black don't crack. Thank you for joining me today for Talk Skin Sip Tea. I hope you enjoyed video 1 of my Skin of Color series. Video 2 is coming very soon. If you have any questions or if you feel like there's anything I missed, please feel free to leave that down below and I'm happy to address any questions. Until next time, stay safe, sip tea, and I will see you in the next video.